Hi, Yulia. Well done for submitting your first essays. It's really good to see some of your writing, and also great that you're submitting them for feedback to try and improve your level as well. It's really one of the best things you can do. Let's have a look at your first piece then, about education and entertainment. So with the changes happening on the global scale, there have appeared an increased number of debates about whether schools should become more entertaining. While undoubtedly the main aim of this institution is to educate, I believe studying might be organised in a more fun and pleasant way. Okay, good. Okay, so with the changes happening on the global scale, there have appeared an increased number of debates about whether schools should become more entertaining. Okay, interesting first sentence there. What I would say is just to make this part really clear, because it's not clear which changes you're talking about. Okay, so be more precise with that part. While undoubtedly the main aim of, I would say here, these institutions, because it's education everywhere, is to educate, I believe studying might be organised in a more fun and pleasant way. Okay, good, well done. The main argument in favour of positive changes in the curriculum would be that the fundamental target of schools is to provide children with academic knowledge, literacy and practical skills. Okay, good. It is definitely better achieved not just by cramming and urging pupils to learn, but by cultivating and developing their interests and inner motivation. Okay, good. I would take out inner here and just have interests and motivation. Okay. These, in its turn, appear when lessons and home tasks are rendered in an interesting context. Okay. So here, this in turn, so not in its turn, this in turn happens instead of appears when lessons and home tasks or homework here are, I would say, have an interesting context and include more creative projects. This approach is supported by numerous research, so I would say here numerous studies proving higher level of this school material comprehension when studied in a pleasant atmosphere. Okay, so this approach is supported by numerous studies which prove that there is a higher level of comprehension when studying takes place in a pleasant atmosphere. Okay, so a good example there. The only thing I would say is that we need to say which studies. Okay, because a lot of the questions will ask for specific examples, and this example is not specific enough. Okay, so see if you can find a study that you know of, or perhaps a school that you know of, to make that example more specific. Okay. The other reason confirming this new approach in the educational system is that modern generation differs immensely from those who studied in dull classes just 40 years ago. Okay, so that's the modern generation. Okay. These youngsters are used to... This phrase here is a good phrase to use, but it's state of the art rather than art of the state. Okay, state of the art technologies, and to engage in games, to short chunks of information, and to rapidly changing environments with an S. Therefore, new methods of teaching, including game theory, computerized interaction, and involvement of online tools, rather than instruments, tools, should be brought into modern syllabus. Okay, I would say here modern curriculums. Okay, if all these were introduced earlier, we could mitigate current educational issues and challenges. Okay, good. So some good points in there. Okay, so talking about the new methods and so on. Okay, what I would say about these two paragraphs is that you've got good points. You're using great vocabulary, but you don't quite get to the examples. Okay, So it's almost like you're leading up to an example, but then you don't include one. Okay, what would make this better is to have a really specific example and then say how this shows that more entertaining education is more successful. Okay, so it's almost all of the way there, but you just need to put in those examples just to take it that little bit further and show that you're analysing rather than just describing. Okay, as well, this part here, you've got the whole paragraph on different techniques, but then you've introduced another theme, which is educational issues and challenges. Now, unless you're going to go into that in detail, I would say don't introduce that at this point, because it will open you to the examiner saying that this bit is not clear. So they'll say, well, what issues and challenges? You haven't described what they are. So I would say either take that out or go into it in a bit more detail. Okay. In conclusion, while the school does remain the educational institution, it will be more beneficial for academic achievements to introduce modernised, entertaining and interactive elements. Okay, so here, take out the definite article. So we've got, while school remains an educational institution, it would be more beneficial for academic achievements to introduce modernised, entertaining and interactive methods, for example, instead of elements. Okay, methods of learning, for example. Okay, good. So a solid piece of writing there. You've got lots of really great vocabulary. You've got a good structure as well. Like we mentioned before, the things that are missing are having some concrete examples in there, and that would just take it from being descriptive to being analytical. Okay. Yeah, I would say that is the key thing to think about here, is to just take your analysis that one step further than it is at the moment. Okay, good. So we'll look at your other one now as well. So now we're on to your second piece, and this is the one that is about reading or other activities being better for child development. Okay, so some argue that reading is the most important for children's development. While this activity indeed improves youngsters' personality immensely, I believe that doing sports or arts and crafts enhance much more skills. Okay, some argue that reading is the most important for children's development. Here we need something after most important. So the most important what? So the most important task, the most important activity for children's development, for example. While this activity indeed improves youngsters' personality immensely, I believe that doing sports or arts and crafts enhances many more skills. Okay, instead of much, because it's countable noun, so many more skills. Improves youngsters' personality immensely. Be careful here with children's development and their personality, because here we're talking more about learning rather than the personality, as in we're talking more about their development as in educational development rather than their personality itself. So for example, their ability to talk to new people. Okay, so be careful with those two, that you don't confuse them too much. Okay, so to start with, sports, sport games. So here we can either say sport or games. Okay. So sports, when performed together with educators, improve competitiveness, cooperation, and cognitive skills more considerably than reading. Okay. I would say, instead of with educators, I would say when carried out at school, for example. Okay. So compared with reading. Thus, through books, the child will get acquainted with rules and techniques, but only on theory level. Okay, so here, so only in theory. Okay, whereas through the game under the guidance of a coach, they instead of he, so they here will acquire the theory as well as all the needed practical skills. Good. It is more beneficial to play once than to read thousands of times. Okay, perfect. Therefore, the advantages of games are numerous and give opportunities to progress in areas neglected by reading. Okay, good. So again, games here, I would change that for sports. Okay, because you're talking fairly specifically about sports there. Okay, good. To continue. Now, instead of to continue, we'd normally use something like in addition or moreover. So, moreover, it is often mentioned that reading evolves imagination and creativity. Okay, so that reading develops imagination and creativity, which is undeniably true. At the same time, one's fantasy, so fantasy begins with an F instead of a PH, should not stay just imaginary. They should be brought into reality. Thus, this may be done only by means of pursuing arts and crafts projects. This is because when doing art projects, this is because when creating things by hand, the brain works more intensely and more neuron chains are created. According to recent studies, painting and sculpting instead of sculpturing, SCULPTING, together with teachers, develops curiosity, inventiveness, as well as children's confidence by 70% more than reading arts books. Hence, it is extremely useful to devote enough time to such projects in preschool and school syllabus. Okay. Instead of syllabus, I would use the word curriculum, because then you can say curriculums. Okay. In conclusion, while no one can deny the significance of reading, I tend to consider mutual engagements in sports and arts as more valuable instruments in enhancing juniors' talents. Okay. Okay, good. Now then, let's just go back to some of this. Okay, yeah, so you've got a good point here about reading developing the imagination and creativity, but that this is added to you through arts and crafts and sculpting. Okay. So I would be really clear about what you're saying here, which seems to be that a combination of reading and arts and crafts is important. Okay. Then, in your conclusion, I would argue that you could take this conclusion slightly further, because you've said exactly what you've said in your introduction, and there's no kind of closure in that conclusion there. So it could be that you say, no one can deny the significance of reading. I tend to consider mutual engagement with sports and arts as more valuable instruments in enhancing juniors' talents. Then I would add a little bit to your opinion here. So, saying something like, as such, I think more schools should encourage more active activities alongside reading. Okay, something like this, just to give a little bit more to your opinion, because otherwise your conclusion is just a repeat of what you said in the introduction with nothing extra there. And in the conclusion, we don't want to add new arguments, but it is good to have a developed opinion at the end. Okay. Also, in a conclusion, you can sometimes it can sometimes be good to say what you think might happen in the future. So it could be saying something like, I believe in future years, schools will be more focused on practical activities rather than studying from books. Okay, so it's just leaving a kind of final comment for the examiner there. But yeah, good. So 2 good pieces of writing. What I would say is just to be a little bit careful of your conclusions. Make sure that you've developed them enough so that there's a good reason for them to be there. instead of just being an afterthought, maybe. And also, as with the first essay, to develop your paragraph so that you've got a strong example in there as well, because everything we say has to be given some form of evidence to back it up. Okay, so these are the two main points to take from this one. Really good work, well done.